guys. Welcome to another edition of the Anything But Everything podcast. I thank you, everyone who's tuning in once again. Let me just give a quick shout out to all my subscribers so far, all the viewers so far. I really want to thank you guys, whether, your family, friends, or, a new subscriber to the channel. I want to thank all of you. So far, the Anything But Everything podcast has gone off to a very good start. If some of you are in the dark about what the podcast is exactly all about, I will leave a link for you guys in the description below. Make sure to check that out. I already have a couple episodes out, so make sure you guys check that out as well. But once again, today, here we are for another episode, and I got a very good buddy of mine. I met him about a year ago while I was still going to college. He's someone who I have learned a lot from. He's gone through some traumatic experiences in life. He's here to share them today. And as always, you can never get a straight answer other than someone who's actually been through the experience first, and I can tell you what they went through, how they felt, the ups, the downs, what changed, what stayed the same. So I'm here with a very good friend of mine, a very good buddy of mine. His name is Joseph. And Joseph, how you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Once again, thank you for being here. It's really a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. When I first got the original idea to start doing this, you were one of the first guys on the top of that list that I wanted to have because your story has just been very inspirational. Every time I hear it, whether it's new information or old information, I don't want to say if getting chills or goosebumps is the right way of putting it, but there's just something about your story that is just very inspirational. Obviously we're here to talk about mental health, but sometimes along with mental health, physically something's come up and life happens. So let's introduce everybody to your story today. So I want to take everybody back to 2010. So you were living your life, just, an average kid just living his life. You had graduated high school at that time. You were working, making some money. Everything was going great, and then tell us slowly as we transition into 2011 what went on.
Well, 2010 was a pretty good year for me. I, like any other person, I was happy, had a good job,
Right.
Making some money. Who's not happy about that?
Right.
But sometimes life takes a different turn, and you go from sometimes good to bad and from bad to good sometimes. So
Absolutely.
that year was probably the beginning where I started off with health issues, and I didn't pay much attention to it at first because mainly the first health issue that I went through was, I believe, caused by me.
Right.
Because of my eating habits, my diet.
Gotcha.
That's mainly because that's what I feel that caused my first health issue, which is a kidney stone, and it was horrible. But that I don't consider it like a major
Right.
thing because I caused that myself. After that, I realized that I had to change my ways and take a different turn.
Right.
On that, but
which obviously was not easy.
Which obviously is not easy because when you unfortunately, good food that tastes good is sometimes most of the time bad for you.
Right.
The food that is good for you never tastes that good anyway.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely hard. But going into 2011, I can say was the year of hell. That I would name it that way because it was the year where things went for the worse.
Life hit
pretty hard, and I know this one was not caused by me or anything that I did myself. It's just something that life threw at me, and I got diagnosed with cancer, leukemia.
Uh-huh.
And so I was given in March of 2011. I was diagnosed, and I was given 6 months to live.
Wow.
Yeah.
So during those, that's absolute hell on its own when a doctor comes out and says you only got 6 months to live. What was your thinking process at that point? Were you very hopeful? Did you feel like this is it, everything's over for me, or what was that state of mind like?
Well, I remember that I went into the hospital, and I stayed there for maybe like about a day or two, and they didn't want to tell me what was going on.
Right.
All I knew is that they kept drawing blood, and every couple of hours taking tests, and I would be like, I would ask the nurses because at this point the doctor hadn't come in at all. So I would ask the nurses, I'm like, what's going on? Why am I still
Yeah.
here? Because I entered for a fever. That's all I went to the
Oh, that's
hospital
all
for.
you were going.
That's
Oh, I
how
didn't
it
know
sta-
that. I did not know that.
That's how it started. Just a fever. And the only reason I went to the hospital was because it lasted for about 2 weeks. I would take like Tylenol or whatever,
Right.
and it didn't go
It
away.
didn't go
It came
away.
back.
Right.
And so at that point, my aunt was like, go to the hospital, go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the hospital, and I stayed there for 2 days without me knowing what was going on. I was
Right.
like, what do I have?
Yeah.
And so at the third day, the doctor comes in. I remember early, I believe it was like not early, it was like around 2:30, around there.
The afternoon.
He comes in, and he's like, he sits down next to me, and he starts telling me, I just want you to know that you have cancer. And at that point, I completely shut down.
The shit.
Like
hits the fan.
after that, okay, after he said that word, I was gone.
I mean, the shit have hit the fan at that
Yeah,
point.
at that point, I was gone because I had a friend of mine that was going through cancer at the time,
Right.
and I had seen what the cancer
Firsthand.
what the cancer had done to him. So
And he didn't make it.
and unfortunately, no,
He didn't make it.
he died a year later after.
So you're in this position where the doctor comes out, sits right next to you, and tells you you have cancer, and you're witnessing a close buddy of yours go through this. Was there a point where you had that little voice in your head telling you, hey, you can still hang on, you can get through this? Or was it like all your resources were telling you, hey, that's it, it's over?
When you hear the word cancer,
It does something to
It
you.
does something to you because it's something that is not easily cured.
Absolutely.
For the most part, sometimes it's not even curable. But when you hear that word, it's just difficult to process because you know that you're about to go through hell
Right.
on earth, basically. Because the medicine that it takes to get rid of this, it's not easy to go through.
It's not overnight.
No, it's not an overnight thing.
So, okay, so from that point where doctor tells you have cancer, what was the first step? Did you have to do something, or did you just have to wait for the doctors to do their thing? Or so now you have cancer, so what was that process of being in it? Now you're in it, so what was that
Well,
process
when
like?
he told me you have cancer, and I just want to let you know that you have 6 months to live, if left untreated.
Yeah.
I was like, my first question, because I had already seen what the chemo had done to my friend,
Yeah.
and my first question was, do I have to do the chemo?
Yeah.
I don't want to do the chemo because I knew the hell that was waiting for me if I did that.
Right.
And he's like, yes, you have to go through the chemo. And so then I just it took me a while to process it, but after that, within 2 days I was on chemo. Took 2 days for them to get me on chemo. And I remember that day, like, I didn't even call my mother because I knew that, first of all, she was working. So I knew that she was working that day. So I didn't want to tell her because I knew that it was gonna hit her hard too.
So at this point, only you know? Nobody else knows?
No one
else
I was
knows.
in the room by myself. No one was with me.
Oh, okay.
The doctor just comes in, sits with me by myself, tells me, hey, this, and this.
And that adds a whole lot more pressure onto knowing that there's this really bad news that your health is at risk and your mom doesn't even know about it.
No. So then what I did is that my aunt, which she's like my second mom,
Right.
My mom's sister, just second mom to me, I called her because I knew that she could handle it a little bit
news,
more. She
yeah.
can handle the news and process it, a little bit better maybe, and maybe she can find a way to explain it to my mom because I couldn't do it.
Right.
I was breaking apart, and if I knew that if I broke apart and I was talking to my mom,
She would break
she
apart.
would break apart.
Right.
So I just couldn't do it.
So when you told your mom, or did you have your aunt tell your mom?
I told my aunt first, and it was hard just to say those words, just for those words to come out of my mouth was just pretty hard.
Yeah.
So then I told her, I can't tell my mom. You got to do it for me because I can't do it.
Right.
So she's the one who told her, and
Do you have any idea how your mom took it?
My mom has told me the story. She said she was, because she's a housekeeper,
Uh-huh.
so she was cleaning at the time. So she remembered my aunt calling her and telling her that, and all she said, she started crying. But then with that same mentality, she's like, she told God, like, you gave him to me, and I don't think you would want to take him from me
Yeah.
this soon. So those were her words.
Those
It's
were her
like,
words.
yeah.
So after that, now your aunt knows, your mom knows, you have to do chemo. So what's next from here?
So I went through a series of tests, obviously, and then I within 2 days I was the first chemo. I remember that it was gonna be a hard one. They had already told me, you expect a series of side effects or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, the first question that comes into your mind, because when you talk chemo, you know that your hair is gonna fall out, stuff is gonna happen. That's what I asked, and so yeah, they had told me, your hair is gonna fall out. They told me that there was a high probability that I can not, have kids, inherit children
Wow.
anymore. Like, that was
Yeah.
out of the question now, and so that was hard for me. Yeah, because I was young. I was 21.
21.
Yeah,
Okay.
21.
So just barely kind of finding yourself and who you are, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden this hits.
Yeah.
So now after all this, so I mean, it seems like as time was going on, you would get more bad news, more bad news. Your hair's falling out.
Oh,
you got
honestly, when the bad news started coming in, it went from bad to worse. They told me that not only that I had the cancer, they told me my heart was down. My heart function was down to about 15%.
Jesus.
So I was at a point of cardiac arrest at any moment.
Wow.
My liver was shot. It was, not doing so good. My spleen, I had an enlarged spleen also.
Wow.
So
Your whole body was just falling
kept
out.
coming.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, when it rains, it really
It pours.
pours.
So how did you handle it?
One step at a time.
One step at a time.
That's honestly my mentality. It was hard, but my mentality was that I cannot control it. I have to take it one step at a time, and just go from there.
Got to listen to what the doctors are telling you.
Yeah.
Do what's
Yeah.
in your best interest. So it all goes back to mentally how you think about it.
Yeah, honestly, I believe that it's sometimes mind over matter.
Yeah.
Because it took a lot. I think many people have died because of cancer, and it's hard. But sometimes, if you start already losing that hope within yourself, you don't need to wait for the cancer to do the work for you. You're already killing
You're
yourself.
already killing yourself.
Mentally.
Right. So when was that point where things started looking up?
It was a while.
It was a while.
It was a while. I can probably say not within 2 years. It took about 2 years.
Wow.
Because I remember the first chemo was the hardest, and I went through an allergic reaction to the point where I couldn't breathe. I remember that day so specifically that they put the chemo. I know they told me that it was going to last about 12 hours. So I had a line put in, a central line in me, a permanent line. So they had that in me, and so I remember that they were like, the chemo's gonna last about 12 hours. We don't know how you're gonna react. You might get side effects. You might not. We don't know. So I did get a side effect from that chemo. I remember I turned completely red, orange, like red, and I couldn't breathe anymore. My breathing was getting clogged up, like closing up.
Yeah.
So
So it's like even when you're trying to do the chemo, trying to do what's best for you, your body still it's giving you side effects now.
Yeah.
So things continue going downhill.
yeah, they when they started it they continued going downhill. They told me because of my heart condition, there was even a higher probability that I wouldn't survive the chemo.
Was this because of your bad eating habits before?
No. This had nothing to do with. This was just a side effect of the cancer at this point.
Oh, okay.
Of the
Okay.
It was just the way that the cancer affected the heart. It was it couldn't be helped.
So now let's jump into the important part. So the bad news keeps on coming. It lasts for a while. What happens next? Where is that point where we, things start, going well for you, or things start getting a little bit better?
Well, I took about I would say about 6 months into the heavy dose of chemo, heavy, all the heavy stuff. Where at this point I had lost my hair, like my body was just
Breaking down.
It was horrible. About 6 months in, because they had told me, you might not survive the chemo because of your heart condition, and it's gonna get worse. So at 6 months in, I went back to do a echocardiogram, and I did the whole work. They did the whole workup on the heart, and then the good news came that the chemo had the opposite effect of what they had thought was gonna happen. It actually helped out my heart, so my
Good.
my percentage went up.
Good.
It was up to, I believe, 30%.
Percentage of.
They call it. I believe they call it the heart injection fraction. I'm not particularly sure about the term, but that's how they call
Percentage of you getting better, or percentage
it. Of the way the heart's function.
reacting to it.
The heart function.
The heart function.
Yeah, the
okay.
heart function. Yeah.
Okay, so finally you get some good news. Things are looking up. What happens next?
Things are looking up, but I would say that
It was like one step forward, two steps back.
it was one step forward, two steps back all the time. I was in and out of the hospital all the time. Like I would leave because I remember I was stuck in the hospital for about when I went in after that first day. I was stuck in there for about a month and 3 weeks.
Wow.
Without going anywhere, on isolation, because first of all I lost all my white blood cells. So what that means is that I couldn't fight off infection. So I couldn't have anyone around me who was even remotely close to getting sick. Even a small little sneeze could make me.
Yeah.
And that could have been catastrophic, because with a body with no white blood cells means that it has no way of protecting itself,
Counteracting
any virus or any bacteria or whatever. So it was pretty rough. But it was in and out after that. I remember I would leave the hospital. When I left the hospital, I would be happy, but then the next day I would be back again for like 2 more days of chemo, so I was back there again. But it was just the thought of me going home at least for a day that kind of
kept me
motivated, even though that I would only be there for a day and back to the hospital the next day. But that kept me going. That kept me in my sanity.
Yeah. So let's step outside the hospital for a second. The one thing that I've always advocated on the podcast is that having that big support system, having people you can talk to, people you can open up to, or maybe people that can distract you, from your troubles for a little while. So did you have that? Was there anybody to talk to? Was there any type of activity that you could do to kind of get away from all this, or
honestly, look, for the first part, it was hard because I couldn't have anyone. Like, no one can go visit me because of the situation.
White blood cells,
no defenses. So, the only persons that were allowed in was my mom and my aunt. And my aunt didn't go in until like maybe 2-3 weeks later, because she was sick when I got diagnosed.
Wow.
So she wasn't able to go. She couldn't go. So I remember that it was just my mom for the first 2-3 weeks, and that was hard. So for the most part, as a support system, as having friends there physically, no. But I got calls all the time from my closest friends. They would call me. They would be like, "How are you? How are you feeling?" Or they would talk to my mom. "How is he?"
Now, honestly, did it help, or was it still like, I'm getting all these calls, but I know what's at stake here?
Honestly, like, people say, yeah, the support system's important, but when you're going through that heavy dose of chemo, the only thing you want to do is sleep. So, like, I didn't even know when they called sometimes, because you
were kind of out of it.
I was out of it.
Yeah.
I was I only had enough energy at that point to keep an eye on like the medicine they're giving me, first of all, because even though I was going through all that heavy stuff, I would always ask the nurses and the doctors, "What are you giving me? What is this for? What is the plan? Tell me what protocol you're gonna use to treat me." And I was on top of it.
Yeah.
Even though I was like one eye in, one eye out, because I the effects of that medicine is extremely hard. So I kept an eye on that, but for the most part, when my friends were to call, like, I would talk to them, but I was out of it. Like, I didn't even.
Right.
Yeah, so it was pretty rough.
So when you were keeping up with the nurse and asking her how everything's going, would she hide information from you, or was she flat out telling you, "Hey, here's what's going on"?
They would tell me. They would definitely tell me. There was one time though that there was no one with me, and they were almost about to overdose me on a medication.
Wow.
And I caught them on it, and I was on chemo at the time.
Yeah.
And so I had told, and the funny part is that the nurse kept insisting that it was the right dose, and I'm like, no, it's not the right dose. And I had her call the doctor, and the doctor was like, no, this is not the right dose of medication. And I understand that, they're human beings. They're gonna make mistakes too, But if you're there, I know that if someone's there to help you out and catch that, it's better. But sometimes it's just not possible for someone to be there with you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I had to advocate for myself. I had to, be there for
Look
myself.
out for yourself. Yeah.
For the time being,
Right.
because at that time there wasn't anyone there with me, so I had to do it myself.
Right. So you're consistently keeping up with the nurses. You're getting all this information and all that. So after that point, what comes next?
Well, after that, I'm keeping up with the info and I'm staying on top of everything. I honestly, I can say that I really stuck to what the doctors have told me. If the doctor said don't eat this, I wouldn't eat it.
Wouldn't eat it.
If the doctor said take this, I would take it. Because
But you would still question it. What is this? Why am
I
I
would
taking it?
obviously
Okay,
I would
okay,
question it. I would
okay.
question it. You always want to question why, the reason for what is this for, and
Yeah.
then you have to understand what you're taking and why are you taking it
Yeah.
for too. You not just blindly say I'm gonna take it because
Right.
just because.
Right.
So, but I whatever they would say, and they would tell me what it's for and how it's gonna benefit you, and it's gonna help you for this, and I would do it. I was religious with my treatment.
Right.
I kept up with it because
So-
I knew I wanted to get better. I wanted to live.
Yeah.
That was my whole. I'm like, I want to live.
Of course.
Yeah.
So keeping up with all of that, listening to the nurses, listening to the doctors, are we now on a point where things are looking up, or was it still rocky, or was it still one step forward, two steps back?
Well, the good news is that the chemo was working.
Okay.
So there was that, and the fact that my system was kind of stabilizing at this point. They kept doing what they call bone marrow biopsies just to check if there were any cancer cells, and thanks to God first of all, and because of the medication, it seemed like it was working. They were happy with what they saw, and they said that the probabilities were that
You were gonna live.
I
Past
was
6
gonna live
months.
past this. It was gonna be hard. It was gonna be hard because it's not easy, but I was gonna live through it.
Where was that point of where things got better and you were slowly getting out of the hospital, the end point of the cancer? So when did all that happen? Cancer starts in 2011.
Cancer starts in 2011. I remember there was it was a year of constant in and out to the hospital.
Right.
And then around 2013 was around the end of 2013 was where I was getting out of that situation where I was not in the hospital so much anymore. I just went in every 2 months. Every 2 months.
Just to do checkups.
I would still get treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. 2014 was the year that I would just go in every 2 months just for checkups, which I was completely done with the treatment. They were happy. There was no cancer cells.
And where was the point where you stopped going completely? Where they said, "Okay, you're okay."
I still haven't stopped completely.
You still
going.
haven't
No,
stopped.
I still go now it's every 6 months.
Every 6 months.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. They just started that right now because before it was every 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So it's a good
February-
sign.
Yeah, it's a good
Okay.
sign. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, very powerful story. I gotta admit, I'm kind of emotional while listening to it, as I trust some of our viewers are as well. But you have said it before that if you could go back, we talked about this the other time. You said if you could go back, and if you had the option of having this cancer not ever be a part of your life, you would never go with that option. You would actually have it play out exactly the way it played out, because you said mentally, things now kind of are in a different light for you. Things kind of they're different. You see things in a whole new way.
Well, sometimes you need what I told you before. Sometimes you need a kick in the pants.
Yeah.
Sometimes whether it's from your parents or whether it's from life, God, whatever you believe in. I believe that this came to me for a reason. I wouldn't change the experience because I think it helped me mature definitely, and it helped me become a better person than I would have been otherwise. And I know it's for some people they might say cancer's horrible, it's this and that, people die of this. I understand more than anyone. I understand.
It's not exactly a fun adventure.
It's not a trip to Disneyland. That's for sure. But the experience for me was definitely life altering. I can say that, and I wouldn't change. I don't think I would change the experience, even because it opened my mind in different ways that I don't think I would have otherwise.
What's the one biggest change pre-post cancer?
The biggest change pre-post cancer, well,
The way that you assess things now, the way that you think, what's the one thing that has massively changed?
I don't stress myself out because sometimes you get stressed out, whether it's at work or whether it's your schoolwork or whether it's, whatever your reasons are for getting stressed. Honestly, my thing is that, whatever your issue is, enjoy life, because you never know the next day, or life is so fragile. You can be good today, bad tomorrow. You don't know. So I honestly, I like to take life now every day as an adventure. I enjoy it. I thank God for it, because every day ever since my experience is a blessing to me.
These thoughts of cancer, do they ever lurk on you? Do you feel like, one day maybe, what if it comes back again? Does that what if ever go off in your mind, or
Honestly, the what if is always there, because it's always gonna be in the back of your mind. Whatever reason, you're always gonna think, is it gonna come back? But you can't live in that fear, because then that's not living.
Right.
Then you're just, again, you're mentally giving yourself something you don't have yet, and something you might never have ever again.
Right.
You don't know. You don't know what life has in store for you. So I would just enjoy life right now,
in the here and now.
and the here and now, instead of thinking of what's going to happen tomorrow, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Only tomorrow knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. So before we close, what would be your and I do this with every episode, what would be your biggest piece of advice to somebody who's maybe going through a battle with cancer, or something like an illness, or mentally is going through a battle where they feel like it's constantly a roller coaster, it's up and down, or it's bad news, bad news, bad news, the shit keeps on hitting the fan? What would be your one piece of advice for someone who's trying to hang on there? What would be your piece of advice, considering what you went through, what you saw your friend go through? What's that one piece of advice that you would give out to everyone who's listening?
Take it one step at a time. Don't try to assimilate everything at once, because it's just gonna overwhelm you. Just take whatever it is they tell you, take it one step at a time. Know that if you're going through something like this, sometimes you cannot control it. Whether we always want to have that control over our lives,
Right.
but sometimes it's just not possible. So we just take it one step at a time, and whatever is God's will. And obviously, and if there's treatments, obviously, and you have to keep up with that, do it.
I quickly want to share a very quick quote that I actually heard from a friend of mine. We were talking about a couple months back, and he was kind of transitioning, in his life. He was finding a new job and all that. And sometimes, you go through changes, or you go through battles, like with cancer, and sometimes you feel like if you have one task, sometimes that task has multiple parts to it. And I remember my friend telling me, he's like, sometimes we look at, tasks like that as, moving one house from one location to another. But until you reach that point where you take it one step at a time, you're moving it brick by brick, one step at a time. So I can definitely agree with that as well. Sometimes, we overwhelm ourselves with, when we have a task, we want to take it all at once. We want to get it done all at once, not realizing that, hey, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes it goes back to, your story. It was bad news, bad news, bad news, but you kind of took it one step at a time, and now you're on the other side, and, thankfully so. Guys, that pretty much wraps it up for an episode of the Anything But Everything podcast. Once again, Joseph, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Such an emotional story, definitely one with ups and downs and positives and negatives. And to anybody out there who might be fighting a similar illness or anything like that, best of luck to you. Hope it all works out. Hopefully you were able to take away something from today's episode. Hopefully we were able to reach out to you in time, and motivate you in some type of way, or maybe at least make things a little bit less, stressful or tense. So once again, guys, I want to thank you all on behalf of Joseph and myself. We thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time on the next episode of the Anything But Everything podcast.